Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi, Nazir Daf Yud Gimel. We are holding at the Mishnah on Yud Beis Amud Beis 4 from the bottom. A fellow gets up and says, Hareini Nazir, L'Kashi Ali Ben. Hashem, out of appreciation for the son that you will grant me, I am accepting upon myself to be a Nazir as an expression of Hakaras HaTov. I will be a Nazir, L'Kashi Ali Ben. Taisus presents it like this. He says, Pirush, Haidah v'shvach l'Hakadosh Baruch Hu. This is Haidah, this is a thanksgiving to Hashem. Shechonani v'zikani v'noel liben, and therefore Hareini Nazir. And in fact, Mazel Tov, he has a son. V'noel liben. What's the halacha? Harei Nazir. In fact, he becomes a Nazir. Of course, this halacha seems to be very obvious, and the Gemara will discuss the chiddush inherent in this halacha. So if he has a son, that's a fulfillment of his condition. He becomes a Nazir. What if he doesn't have a son? He has a daughter or a tumtum, whose simon is covered over. It's unknown whether this is a son or a daughter. Vadregnus, or this joint, combined male-female entity. In these cases, Einoi Nazir, he is in fact not a Nazir. Why? Because he says, when I'll have a son who's clearly a boy, then I will be a Nazir, but in these cases, not. What if he says it differently? Im Amar, suppose he declares as follows. Kishayeli Vlad, when I will have an offspring, any sort of child, I will be a Nazir. In this case, the halacha changes. Anything qualifies. Afilu noyod bas or a tumtum ve'adreganus. In all these cases, harei a Nazir, because after all they are considered Vlad. What if he pila ishtoi? Again, this fellow says, when I have a Vlad, I am a Nazir. His wife miscarries. In which case, we don't really know whether that miscarriage featured a fetus who was actually viable, and something went wrong and he died, or the unborn child was never meant to live. He wasn't going to be a ben kayama. He didn't have the ability to actually have a successful life. So in this case, we have a suffix. Because when he says, I want to have Vlad, he meant something viable. A Vlad shel kayama. We don't know whether this child qualifies. So it's a suffix. What happens with a suffix? He pila ishta ein a Nazir. It doesn't obligate him to be a Nazir. The Gemara will tell us, this is according to the Shittas Rabbi Yehuda, who says, a suffix Nazir lahakel, we go lakula. According to Rabbi Shimon, we go lachumra. And therefore, when there's a suffix, such as in this case, was this child going to survive, a ben kayama, if not for this mishap that occurred that terminated his existence, but it really was a vlad shel kayama, in which case he should be a Nazir. Or shall we say, this child was not going to survive, it wasn't viable, it was not bar kayama, it doesn't qualify as vlad, and he's pater. So his suffix, he must accept upon himself Nazirus, but he has to do it on condition, because just in case he's not a Nazir, he can't bring karbanis. So what does he do? Reb Shimon Omer Yoymar, this fellow should get up and make a tanai, a condition. Im haya ben kayama, if in fact this child qualifies, harei ani Nazir chayva, in which case I am going to proceed with an obligatory Nazirus as per my commitment. Vimla, but if he was not a ben kayama, I'm still going to be a Nazir, but voluntarily. Harei ani Nazir nidava, I am now committing to be a Nazir, which would allow him to bring karbanis at the end of the term. Now what happens if Chazra v'yolda, his wife gets expectant again and gives birth? This time it was certainly a viable child, Vlad shel kayama. Harei a Nazir. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, who told us that in the previous case, he's not a Nazir because it was a suffix. But then when his wife proceeds and has a viable child, now his commitment gets triggered, gets activated. He becomes a regular Nazir. This will be his fulfillment of the Hareini Nazir commitment. Whereas according to Rabbi Shimon, it's not so simple. Because remember, he had already kept Nazirus on account of that suffix. Right? So, if in fact it turns out that that first child was a Ben Kayama, did obligate Nazirus, then he already did his job. He checked it off the list. He fulfilled his commitment. So you can't just be a Nazir again. You have to be Mekabel Nazirus. Therefore, says Reb Shimon, do it as follows. Reb Shimon Omer Yomer, he should say like this. If in fact the previous child qualified, and the Nazirus that I did on account of that child was a real Nazirus, Harishan Chayva. So that Nazirus was obligatory, was triggered by that birth. And the upcoming Nazirus that I do now is something which I'm just offering right now. It's a new Nazirus. But on the chance that not, meaning that previous child was not a Ben Kayam, in which case the Nazirus that I kept then was just, an Adava. Harisha Nadava. So in fact, that earlier Nazirus was Nadava. It wasn't as a result of my commitment, it was just a Nadava. V'zu Chayva. But the upcoming Nazirus, on account of the second birth, is in fact a fulfillment of my obligation. This is the Chayva. Okay, so we have basically two cases in the Mishnah. He promises to be a Nazir when he has a Ben, and in fact he gets that child. A son is born, he is a Nazir. Then we go on to the case of Vlad, which includes all kinds of offspring. When it comes to a Hapala, we have this machlekes. So, what's the chiddush? I said I'm going to have a son, I'll be a Nazir. Of course, if I have a son, I become a Nazir. Hi, my lememer. Why even discuss that case? Isn't it simple, plain, and obvious that he's chayiv and Nazirus? The answer is you're right. But sometimes a Mishnah will state an obvious fact on account of the next one. Just, to get the list going. Mishum Seifa on account of the next halach. Bas, tumtum, vadroignus, einay Nazir. When he committed to become a Nazir, when he gets a Ben, only a Ben qualifies. But if he has a daughter, a tumtum or a droignus, he need not become a Nazir. That's the chiddush. Well, why is that a chiddush? Pshita, of course. He asked for a son, not for a daughter. Mahadatema, perhaps I would say, likesheyibana huduka amar. Although he did say, when I have a Ben, Ben can mean son. Ben can mean I'm built up, which is the lashon of pasuk. We find ve'ibana gam anochi mimeno. We find it by Sarah. We find it by Rachel imenu. It builds up a person. It establishes a legacy, a continuity. Perhaps that's all he meant. So any child qualifies, son, daughter, etc. Kamash mondaloi. The chiddush is no. When I said Ben, I mean it. Dafka ibn Zachar. Otherwise, I'm pater. But in the next case we have Vimamar Kishali Vlad. When I have any child qualifies. Pshita, here as well, it's obvious that in fact he's a Nazir. Why even discuss it? The chiddush is perhaps only a boy qualifies. Although he said Vlad, it means the Michshav Beni Inshi Beni, something which is held in high esteem by people, a boy. But if it's not a boy, it's not considered, even Vlad, in the way people speak. The chiddush is no. If you wanted specifically a boy, you would have said so. The fact that you used the lashon Vlad, it's all encompassing. But a pila ishta in a Nazir, a miscarriage, does not trigger Nazirus because it's a suffix whether or not it was a Vlad ben Kayama, man k'tanila, who's speaking here. That's Rabbi Yehuda, the Kriyu. Rabbi Yehuda, famous shita by the Kri. We had this the other day. I committed to being a Nazir if there is 100 measures, 100 kur in this pile of wheat. The pile's gone, I have no idea. Rabbi Yehuda says you're pater. Because the person does not commit himself misafik. Here as well, it's just a suffix, you're pater. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he must keep Nazirus misafik, and he has to stipulate, look, if it's a chiv, I'm doing the chiv, otherwise I'm accepting upon myself midava. Rabbi Shimon Omer Yoima, I should say, Imhoyi ben Kayam, if in fact this child was a ben Kayam, Hareini Nazir chayva v'imla, but otherwise Hareini Nazir netava. Ba'imine Rabbi Abba mirafuna. Here comes a question. Hareini Nazir lekeshiyele ben. I'm going to be a Nazir when I have a child. Ve'ipila ishtay. His wife miscarries, in which case it's a suffix, right? Whether or not he has to be a Nazir. Ve'ifresh carbon. And this fellow goes and designates, a carbon for his carbon Nazir, which kind of indicates that he's taking this thing seriously, and perhaps he plans on becoming a Nazir, regardless of the fact that it's just a suffix. But listen to this. V'chazra v'yelda. The way Taisus explains it, his wife, he knew he was expecting a twin, and there it goes. A little while later, there is the second portion of the twins, another baby, and this new baby was Vlad Shel Kayama. We see clearly, healthy child, a viable child. Mahu, what is the halacha? The way Taisus explains it, there would be a svara to say that, true, when that first of the two twins were born, turns out to be a miscarriage, you have no idea whether or not he was a viable child. This is suffix. But now that we have another child, a twin of that first one, who turns out to be healthy and viable, perhaps this is a strong indication that this pregnancy was healthy, was viable, on account of both of the twins. It's a megala. It reveals. It's an indicator, perhaps, that even that first child was viable. Do we say that or not? Mahu, what is the halacha? So first, we want to know aliba deman. Your question is being posed, according to whose shita? Aliba de Rab Shimon. Are we focused on Rab Shimon? Well, there's no question that my tiboyle. Why even ask it? Ha'amar Rab Shimon safek naziris lahachmer. Rab Shimon consider this fellow to be a nazir from the first birth, because a safek is lahachmer. So there's no question that he has to be a nazir. Ve'al aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, we'll focus on Rabbi Yehuda. The Amaru says that typically we say lekula, but it's a safek naziris. Safek naziris lahakal. What about this case? Shall we say that, perhaps since he had another birth from that same pregnancy who was healthy, that's a strong indicator that the first birth was also of Vlad Shel Kayama. On top of the fact that he took a carbon and he was mafresh already. So you see, he's taking it seriously. Kaddish alay Kaddish. Shall we say the behema is Kaddish or not? Is it Kaddish due to that Hagdish after the first birth? Or should we say not? What's the point of asking this question? So the Farshim explain, he can't bring the carbon to the Beis HaMikdash, because we don't really know whether it was Kaddish, because remember, he was just Magdish it after the first birth, which was a suffix. Right? So we don't know whether he was a Nazir, and the animal can't be brought as a carbon Nazir. But perhaps you can't treat it like a non-carbon. What about shearing its wool, which is asr by a carbon, working with it? Take it, we leave it unresolved, whether or not this thing is asr. Ben Rechumi was a Moira mentioned only in Maseches Nazir. He asks Abaye the following question. Hareini Nazir, ben. Reuben says, when I have a child, I'll be a Nazir. V'shav v'chameira. Shimon overhears this. V'amar v'olai. He says, me too. Mao. What is the halacha? What did he mean when he said v'olai? It's upon me as well. I am also obligating myself to be a Nazir. When? Adi bure mashma. Did Shimon mean, I too will be a Nazir when you, Reuben, have a child? I'll celebrate with you. Or perhaps Shimon is referring to his own personal experiences. When I have a child, I'll be a Nazir. I'm going to do the same as you did. You promised to be a Nazir when you have a boy. I will do the same when I have a boy. If you'll suggest that agufei mashma, that when he says v'alai, he means it's upon me. When I have that same experience, I will be a Nazir. Nothing to do with Reuben's child. Rather, it has to do with his own child, Shimon's child. If that's the case by v'alai, what about Hareini Nazir? Reuben says, I'm going to be a Nazir. Look at Sheheli Ben when I have a child. V'shama chaver, and Shimon hears those words of Amar. He says, instead of v'alai, he says v'ani, and me too. Oh, here's an interesting question. Mahu, how would you interpret that word vani? It's different than va'alai. Va'alai perhaps means it's upon me as well when I have that child. But here he's saying vani, me too. Does he mean to say anav sheikh amar, when I have a child, I'll be a Nazir? Or perhaps over here you can interpret it differently. I'll join you in celebrating your birth. I have ava to you. I've loved you, just like like you are excited upon a birth of a child. Me too. There's a gersa rechimna lei. I have affection, enjoyment, appreciation, excitement for your child, just as you have for your child. Basically, I'm going to join you in celebrating your birth. That's va'ani. Me too. I'm with you. Kalban pei. If she shall propose, then in fact that's what it means. Because when Shimon, stands in front of Reuven after making this declaration about being a Nazir upon having a child, and Shimon goes and says va'ani, ksifalei milsa. It's embarrassing for him to just do his own thing. If it's ban pei in his presence, it makes sense that he's being nice to him, and he's joining in his anticipation and his excitement, rather than being focused on his own personal anticipation. So vani means I'm going to join you when you have a child. I'll be a Nazir just like you. If that's the case, what if it's not in his presence? Omar, let's say Reuben says Hareini Nazir, I'm going to be a Nazir when Levi has a child. And Shimon hears this and he says, me too, V'amar vani. So here it's not in Levi, the future father's presence. It's in front of Reuven. Mao, how would you translate the word vani? Miyamrina, shall we say, shaloi b'fanav, since it's not in Levi's presence, anav sheikh amar, here certainly when Shimon says vani, he means his own personal experience. When I have a child, I will be a Nazir. Or perhaps we can say, hachik amarle, Shimon in fact is referring back to Reuven. Reuven, you're excited upon Shimon's birth, Levi having a child. Me too. I also like Levi, just like you do. I also am excited upon Levi's future fatherhood, and I'm going to be a Nazir when he has a child. Tiboyi, we leave it as an open question. Continues the mission. Hareini Nazir. This fellow says like this: I'm going to be a Nazir, which basically triggers, an instant Nazirus process. I'm going to be a Nazir now. Number one. Number two, the Nazir, I'm also going to be a Nazir kishiyeli ben, when a boy will be born to me. So he's accepting upon himself two separate Naziriyas. One now, starting now, one upon childbirth. So he starts counting the first Nazirus, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. And he gets to day 15, Mazel Tov, he has a boy. What does he do? Well, he has to finish his Nazirus. That takes priority. That was number one on the list. First he completes the first Nazirus until 30, shaves, karbonis, and then he starts fresh. Then he goes on to the next Nazirus on account of his son's birth. Why? Because he sequenced it this way. First he said, I'm going to be a Nazir, unrelated to birth, and then he said, another one related to birth. So first you have to finish the first, and then proceed to the second. What if it's the other way around? He started with Nazirus related to birth. Hareini Nazir kishiyeli ben. I'm going to be a Nazir upon childbirth. And then he says, Vin Nazir. And on top of that, I'm also going to be a plain Nazir. And his chel moines shaloi. So his child wasn't yet born. He figured, okay, let me not lose any time. He starts counting the second Nazirus, and 10 days into the Nazirus, Mazel Tov. Here, he can't just finish and then move on to the second Nazirus, because remember, his first Kabbalah related to his son's Nazirus. So this compels him to suspend, to put aside, to pause the Nazirus which he began to count. And he goes over to the other Nazirus on account of his son's birth, counts 30 days. Then he goes back to complete of the 15, 20 missing days from the other Nazirus. And Tosfos points out that he'll just do one he'll just do one giluach, giluach, and one set of karbanos. That after he finishes, all the days, 60 days in total, he'll do one giluach with one set of karbanos. Apparently, it's like one package, which allows him to just wrap it together as one. So we have two cases. I'm going to be a Nazir, and also another Nazir upon childbirth. He starts counting the first one. You have to finish it, even though a child was born. You have to finish it. Do giluach, bring karbanos, and start the other one for the son. The other way around, he says, I'm going to be a Nazir upon my son's birth, and then I'm going to be another Nazir. And he starts the Nazirus, and then his child is born. He has to set it aside, go to the son, finish that, go back to the first one, and upon completion of both sets of 30, he does one set of karbanos. Boy, Rav had a question. Omar Hareini Nazir la'achar esrim yom. He says, I'm going to be a Nazir in 20 days. And then he continues, Uma'achshav me'ah yom. And starting from today, I'm going to be a Nazir for 100 days. What's the halacha? What do you do? Kivan dehalein me'ah be'esron le'shalman. So the question is, do I start counting today? I'm going to have to stop in 20 days and pick up the other Nazirs and go back to this one. So what do we do? Kivan dehalein me'ah. The fact is that these 100 days pertaining to the second Naziris, the 100 day Naziris, be'esron le'shalman. We're not going to finish the 100 days within the next 20 days, right? Impossible. So by the time the first Naziris, which was meant to start in 20 days, kicks in, I'm not going to be finished my first, my 100 day Naziris. So perhaps don't do it. Don't do it yet. Lo chaylan. It's not chal. It doesn't get activated at this point because there's no potential for completing it at this early point. So wait 20 days. Do the Naziris for 30. When you're done, start the 100. Or perhaps we can say, Kivan the Isla Gidl Seir, Libasayf. Fact is, even if I start the 100 day Naziris today, and when day 20 comes in, I start the other Naziris. The standard 30 day Naziris. After which I cut my hair, bring karbanis. And then, after which I'll go back to my 100 day Naziris. How many days are left? 80. That's still enough. You need at least 30 days to facilitate a proper haircut. So in 80 days, there'll be enough time, plenty of time for my head to grow back. Or perhaps we can say, given the Isla Gidl Seir L'Basayf, since ultimately I'll have long enough hair to facilitate a proper haircut. Chaylan. So why not have the 100 day Naziris start now? After 20 days, I'll shift over to the next Naziris. I'll put the 100 day Naziris on hold. I'll go over to the next Naziris. Upon completion, haircut. Then go back to my 100 day Naziris and whatever is left of it, 80 days, which is enough to provide for another haircut. That's the question of Rava. The Gemara will elaborate on it, Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow. Okay, we have two Mishnahs. In the first Mishnah, a fellow promises to be a Nazir upon birth of a Ben. That works. But if he has a Bas Tumtum Adurgnus, there's no Chiv. He says, I'm going to be a Nazir when I have a Vlad. Anything works. What about Hapol, which is a Suffolk Vlad Kayama? Rabbi Yehuda says no Nazir. Rav Shimon says Suffolk Nazir, do it on condition. A fellow says, I'm going to be a Nazir upon childbirth, and his friend hears and says, Va'alai or Va'ani. Better question what these things mean. Does he mean upon, Reuven's childbirth? He's going to join in the celebration, or perhaps he's referring to his own personal childbirth. We had a Mishnah with two cases. I'm going to be a Nazir, and I'm going to be another Nazir when I have a child. You start the first, finish it, take a haircut, get it over with, and then start the second one. They're two separate experiences. In a case where he says, I'm going to be a Nazir when I have a son, plus another Nazir, and he starts the second Nazir now, and then he has a child in the middle, he suspends it, goes over to the child, comes back to the first one. Upon completion of the whole system, he does one set of karbonos, and we left off with Rava's Shaila. All the best to you, Hatzlacha, Rav, and Psuras.